maybe Magneto off of X-Men, because he controls all things metal, and there's metal everywhere. So
Reggie, and because he was saucy, but in the end he always got beat up.
I'd have to be somebody like the Riddler or something like to, make you think, kind of doing different things.
Welcome back to Help TV. Today on the show, comic books as a career in stores and professionals in the field, as well as comic books as literature. And Jenny, we're talking about, comics that we read. What was one of your favorite comics?
Well, I just asked these guys, and they said Strawberry Shortcake was a comic, so I really liked the peculiar purple pie man from Porcupine Pete. You know that guy with the mustache? That's my favorite villain.
So I have to concede I'm not as up on Strawberry Shortcake as I will need to be as my daughter gets older. So what's the appeal of this purple Pete guy?
He has this really good foot move that he does when he does this, and he does this a lot. That's what it is. I can't tell you why I really like that, but I do.
That. That would be good. So that's your next costume.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, okay. Have a good time. All right, so back with Darren and Orion, and we were talking before the break about superheroes and also some of the more sophisticated aspects of the superhero comic medium. Darren, let me go to you on this. What are some of the current social issues that are being engaged through superhero comics?
Well, I mean, one of the things that is central to comics right now is the exploration of the idea of, fascism and state control. I mean, and it's taken a little while for mainstream comics to catch up to this idea that if a bunch of people who are vigilantes that can shoot beams from their hands and walk through walls, if there is a government like we know it, they're going to want to do something about this.
And when you say do something about it, you mean that in a couple of ways, I guess.
In a couple of ways. Throughout the history, I mean, I'm a Marvel guy, so I can talk about Marvel comics. I know it's the same in DC, but, there have been a number of storylines about, government organizations or quasi-governmental organizations that are there to control or destroy superheroes or whatever.
And so part of that is right now, especially in the United States, where there's fear of terrorism on one side, some of which some people say is being manipulated by their government. And you've got organizations like Homeland Security. So there's an actual comic that is exploring this idea of superheroes divided up into pro and anti?
Yeah, Marvel Comics in the last year has just gone through a big cross-book storyline called Civil War, where the superheroes end up divided between over the issue of whether or not there's going to be a registration act for superheroes.
Right, okay. So just in the same way that other target populations in North America have been subject to registration and being put into camps and stuff. Orion, how about you? What are some of the issues you find fascinating being explored through superhero comics specifically?
A lot of the similar stuff. I mean, it's almost impossible to do any popular entertainment right now without talking about the war, as they say. But similar issues come up. I mean, as you said, the mainstream guys have sort of taken a while to get on with this, but we've had these issues talked about in V for Vendetta, a recent movie that was a comic book back in 1983, I believe.
Right.
Watchmen in 1986. This stuff has been taken up, and I just have to agree. I think it's a lot of the same interesting issues of what this says about what we think about justice.
Now, these images and these concepts certainly are bubbling over from comics into Hollywood. What is it right now, other than just wanting to make money, because obviously these are attractive images, they're lucrative, but why is Hollywood interested in something like V for Vendetta, which is, after all, the story of a terrorist who is a hero? That's not typical Hollywood fare. So why now?
Well, I think precisely for that reason. The Wachowskis, I think, really specifically looked for V for Vendetta as a vehicle to talk about terrorism and to mess with your sense of right and wrong here, and maybe make you look at the situation from a slightly new, fresh point of view.
Yeah.
And, I got to say, there's got to be an aspect of it that Alan Moore is accepted as, and we'll talk about it more.
Yeah, the creator of Watchmen.
As the canonical writer, and that sort of maybe trickled down to Hollywood's little brain. So now they're like, well, Alan Moore, he's classy, so we'll buy all his properties and make terrible movies.
Right, exactly. So they're somewhat attracted to the concepts, even if they handle them poorly. So let's go to something where Hollywood has taken up comic book concepts, I think, well, the television show Heroes. And we were talking before in the break about the reluctance to show New York in peril in Hollywood, but certainly Heroes first season is all about a nuclear explosion in New York. What are your thoughts on Heroes?
Well, I actually thought that was incredibly gutsy. And they pulled it off by just going for it, not shying away, not trying to look away from this. And what they managed to do is capitalize on imagery that we're all very familiar with now and that hits us in a very different way. If you had a movie or a comic book or a television show flattening Manhattan 15 years ago, it just didn't mean the same thing. It really means something specific now. So they went for the gut shot and it worked.
Yes, all right. Okay, well, when we come back, we're going to talk some more about some of the highlights of the medium, some of the greatest works. But first, we've got a fascinating piece of journalism right now on the events at Happy Harbor Comics.
There's only one place in the world where you can watch an automobile getting milked. That's at the Comic Jam.
Comic Jam is a improv jam session. Like when musicians get together and jam, it's the same thing. Artists get together, working off of each other's art, creating stories really quickly, and just having a good time. Everyone sits down, they get a big blank sheet of paper. We do it in 13-minute time periods, and the objective is to create one, or if you can do more than one panel, in that 13 minutes. After which we just shift our papers, usually one to the left, and then you take over someone else's story. So you keep it going. And at the end, usually after about 2 hours, you've usually got one page. Generally, they work out to being gag stories. Whenever you do something that quickly, usually you give it a punchline just to wrap it up. But it's really interesting because you see all the different art styles as the story tries to progress and as people try to keep up with the story and make it work. All right, guys, so our theme tonight is Traffic Jam. We've got 13 minutes for your first panel, and go.
I don't think I'm going to quit working in TV anytime soon.
That's something else we try to do from time to time. You play a little bit of Screw Your Neighbor, where you set up a panel that's like almost ridiculously impossible for the next person to try to follow up on. Try to make, oh yeah, it's great. It's like he'll never be able to continue this. Pass one to the left.
Whoa. I can't follow this, man.
This is the beauty of it.
I can't follow this.
This is when a jam truly becomes a jam. But if you're trying to follow this and you think you can't, it's like, oh, I don't know where to go with this. I don't know what to do with it. We have something, we call it the meanwhile.
The meanwhile.
Yeah. So at the beginning of your panel, you put a little caption box that says meanwhile, and you just draw something completely different.
So he left me with a mechanic milking a truck. The next guy gets a magical flying rabbit. One of the skills I learned at Comic Jam. Okay, you're an objective observer here. What's your opinion of the Comic Jam?
It was incredible to observe. I mean, just the raw creativity, not only drawing the skits, but coming up with the dialogue, I think is amazing, and thinking on their feet is pretty incredible.
Some guy is milking a Chevy, and then a magical flying random rabbit comes up, and a guy wishes that there was an automatic way to do it, and so I'm having the rabbit make one truck milk the other truck.
Trucks milking trucks. What direction is this comic going in?
Well, it started off with Pac-Man, and then Pac-Man took some Viagra. And so I just took it totally elsewhere and kind of went with an innuendo.
What kind of innuendo?
Well, it's a lollipop.
Oh dear.
So we do it the second and fourth Thursday of every month. You just show up, meet people. If you don't have pencils and inks, we'll give you pencils and inks. The paper's there.
Looks like it started off with a fella stuck behind a farm tractor. He got really angry and turned into the Hulk, and now the Hulk wants to smash the tractor, but the farmer seems curiously undisturbed by this fact.
Well, I don't see anything very sexual in this one. What's wrong with it?
The more I've continued to do it, the more it's become important to me to convey the right message to people that, you know, comics are really, really sophisticated and they need to be appreciated more.